Hello, everybody. How are we doing tonight? How's it going? Don't know if you could hear through the audio. I was having a little issue right now, but how are we doing tonight? My name is CJ Robles, and I'm here with the Indie Escape. Hello, hello, hello. And it brings me great joy tonight to be here to host this show we're going to have. It's one of our new brothers, one of our Indie Escape brothers now. He is going to bring his crew on, and we're going to talk about his project he's been doing. And I don't really want to take too long, so I'm just going to bring him in right away. Let's give this man a great audience. Everybody just make a lot of noise. Bring him in, everybody. Steve Gray, come on in already. Hey, Steve.
Hey, yo.
How's it going? Going well,
Good
going well. Good seeing you, man. I like right I was telling you, just wanted to get you. Oh, what's going on? We already started. Oh, is that oh yeah, the ghost behind the thing. So what's up, Sean Smith? Joe's still here with us. It's definitely in spirit.
Hey, Sean.
Hey, Sean. How's it going, brother? I was just saying, I was binging all your videos all day today and yesterday, and like I said, in 2020, I started listening to a lot of animated horror stories, and they really just a simple 2D animation, just kind of me filling in the story in my head, and I really liked it. And when I noticed I started hearing all of them, and I even got there's a guy named like Mr. Ballin or something like that. He does a bunch of horror stories. I caught on to that guy, and I've seen all his stuff. And then it brought me very, very great joy to listen to your stuff because it's brand new. And there was something there that came out through your one of your illustrations. You said you like Jason a lot.
Right.
So
right.
That's why I wore the Voorhees shirt.
Right on.
The Crystal Lake shirt. But I like the way that story was told. It was like a Jason story without having to see Jason, and I was like, man, these are great stories that you have. So tell us what's up. What are we here for?
I appreciate that. Yeah, I guess tonight we're going to run Bestial in its entirety. It's a little audio story that I've been working on for quite some time, and I'm just putting it out there, you know. And I hope you can hear me. Sorry about
yeah, you're coming in good. We had a little technical difficulties, but we got through it.
But just gonna roll that and see how well that flies.
All right, so let's get some of the crew in here. Let's get Johnny Mac in here.
Good morning.
How you doing, Johnny?
Right on. How you doing?
Doing well.
Mr. Johnny Mac, he played the detective in Bestial, did an impeccable job. In fact, I wrote the role of the detective with Johnny Mac in mind.
See, it's good to meet up in jail. See,
Yeah.
Is there a story?
Prison, yeah.
Oh, prison. There's a story behind this, or
Just
pen pals. We finally met.
Steve's the man. Steve's the man.
Steve's the man. Yeah.
That's you, man.
Let's get the other guy up in here. Let's get Brian up in the mix. Come on, Brian, come up in here.
Mr. Brian Chambers, man, just did an equally amazing job doing the morgue technician. Same thing. I wrote the role with you in mind, and because you got that, that witty comedy, that comedic thing to you, and I figured that fit,
I do what I got.
What's up, Brandon? All right,
Hey.
the CJ Steve Gray. Good evening,
Brandon.
Indie Escape
How's it
Brothers.
going,
What's
man?
up, Brandon? So we got the crew here. So we're gonna play the entirety of Bestial, and we're gonna have add some comments, but we'll try to add everything. We'll ask everything at the end. We were kind of on a time crunch, so let's get this going.
Oh, wait a second. I got a question because I think I've been mispronouncing this the whole time. How do you pronounce it, Steve?
It's Bestial.
Okay, I've been saying
Bestial.
Bestial, so Bestial. Sorry.
I added the A.
Yeah.
Added A there.
Yeah, it's cool because I've been saying it that way myself.
All right.
All right, that
what
was
we
my
wanna
quick
call it.
pop in. Bye, guys.
That's all, Joe. So Joe, play those beats. Spin that track.
Hit those beats. Hit the
Yeah.
box.
If he's still there, there we go.
The beginning of the mayhem that was brought to this town goes back to an early age. It stretches vast reaches of time before the world became lit with lanterns, torches, gas lights, and to the more current televisions, smartphones, and cityscapes. But to condense, we'll focus on its effect on the here and now. and to the story which took place in this small part of the world called Zephyr Hills, Florida. It began, so it's speculated, on a Friday night in June, as the moon hung ominously red in the evening sky. A situation was unfolding at a small and cozy restaurant on Main Street. The usually bustling walkways and storefronts this evening were somewhat quiet. A couple were just finishing their dinner at a table which was situated in the outside dining area of the Main Street bistro. There was tension. Some harsh words were spoken. The man had thunderclouds on his brows, and the woman had tears welling in her hazel eyes. Apparently, this date night wasn't going to help in the start of making things better. Poisonous words spewed from the man's mouth as he attempted to keep them at a low volume, as so only she would hear them. It was enough to cause the woman to rocket herself to her feet, with force enough to almost topple the chair she was sitting in. The scalding tears were now slowly starting to cascade down her face. A look of shock and deep sorrow now masked her visage. She stood trembling. Not wanting to perpetuate the scene amidst the other diners, she swiftly turned and stormed down the walkway, heels clicking the pavement. The man was left at the table staring at a near-empty plate as the other diners stared somewhat contemptuously at him and then returned back to their own dinners and conversation. The woman walked along the sidewalk, going from the lit setting of the small downtown area, gradually making her way toward a more dimly lit part of Main Street, towards surroundings that were populated by pine trees, palmettos, and other greenery. Furious footsteps in the foggy dark. After walking for a while and allowing her temper to cool, she slowed her stride just a little. But something was waiting in the close-by wooded area, buried in the cover of the surrounding trees, just feet from the sidewalk. It looked with a gaze of crazed hunger at the woman. As she continued her steps upon the cracked pavement, the swirling evening mist slithered around her, and she was suddenly touched by a feeling of unease. Alone. Every sound intensified as her senses seemed to heighten. It was then that she became aware of the feeling of being stalked. Her ideas were leaning toward the possibility of some sort of predator being nearby. Times were crazy, and it's completely conceivable that there could be a maniac somewhere out there. She slowly glanced over at the tree line just past the clearing of grass. She could feel it. There could be someone. As her intuition had led her, she was right. A massive assailant, shrouded in shadow, sprung from thick foliage of the nearby wooded area. Its attack was swift. She had no time to think of an escape, much less try one. Her sudden, shocked, agonized screams and gargles went unnoticed by the patrons of downtown Main Street, nearly a quarter of a mile back in the other direction. The assailant's razor-sharp strikes repeated an assault on her throat. They descended again, and again. Again. The nocturnal wildlife continued its cacophony as the grisly feeding commenced. The town's detective was alerted to a call several hours later. He had been notified that there was a badly mutilated body discovered in a clearing near a wooded area and a stream near Main Street in Zephyr Hills, and when he arrived on scene, there were already a bustling contingent of uniformed police officers, crime scene investigators, and the ME photographer. The sheet which covered the corpse was drenched in blood. He could see this from yards away as he exited his car to approach the scene. Being a former cop from a hectic part of New York, he'd seen quite a number of horrible things. But here, in this town, it was low-key and quiet. And in the previous past couple of weeks, this had been the third call like this. What was this one going to look like? He thought. He's been the detective in this town for over 15 years, and to date, he'd never been called to a scene where mutilated corpses whose blood-drenched sheets had ever been discovered. Furthermore, who had been causing this? What had been causing this? They had to be apprehended. Even worse now, once this poor soul, who was laying on the ground now only a few feet in front of him, was identified, the awful task of telling the family would have to be done. He observed a single hand protruding from the cover sheet. The fingernail polish was as vibrant red as the random stripes of blood that pooled in the palm, splashing patterns like Chinese ideograms. The detective slowly knelt down, and with a slightly shimmering hand, slowly pulled back the blood-drenched sheet. What he saw first caused him to instantly grimace, but then gradually his expression became blank. His look was chilling in its vacuous emptiness. With a million thoughts running through his mind, none of them good, he slowly looked up and panned his view at the surroundings. He then fixed his gaze and continued to stare at nothing at all. The early morning fog grew thicker still, and the soft lavender glow of the coming dawn emerged. As the humid and misty dawn broke, activity was already beginning to stir. The neighborhood was starting its Saturday morning with birds twittering in the surrounding oaks. Dogs were barking at a passing taunting cat, and someone had already cranked a power mower into commotion. In one of the houses on the block, a very pretty girl was asleep on her stomach. She was in the comforting throes of her dream realm when suddenly the alarm on her phone, which she had set the night before, started to sound off. She began to groggily swim upward toward the waking world as the vibration of her phone caused it to slowly travel toward the edge of her night table. She blew out a tuft of hair which was in her mouth. Just before the phone had made its descent to the floor, she grabbed it and turned the alarm off. Her opening eyes were puffy with sleep, and her voice was agitated slightly.
Damn it, already? I feel like I just went to sleep.
It was time for her to start shifting and getting into motion, as this was going to be an amazing day. She swung her legs off the edge of the bed to land her feet into the waiting slippers on the floor. She then brushed her hair, which was decidedly tangled from sleep, she hadn't bothered to put it up, and brushed her teeth. After a nice facial scrub with one of the many artisan facial cleaners that decorated her vanity, she left the room and still sleepily shuffled toward the kitchen. It was time for her coffee, her high-test stuff. As she walked down the hall, a notification came through her phone. It was an MMS message from her best friend, Neve. A V-text, as they referred to this type of message. They'd been communicating this way ever since they'd first learned how to send and receive voice memo messages back in the day. Just another way to communicate. With an almost indifferent look, Raimi tapped play on the message to start listening to it. She then sat the phone on the breakfast bar in the kitchen as she started her task of making the coffee. Neve's soft voice chimed through the phone's speaker with a sound of concern.
Hey, Raimi. I know it's a bit early, sweetheart. I just wanted to give you a V-text. I've been thinking about what we were talking.
Raimi only listened to a few seconds of the message before impatiently and quickly tapping the stop button on the V-text.
I'll listen to this later. It's too early for drama.
She didn't want to listen to Neve's complaining. She seemed to be acting so damned jealous and insecure lately, Raimi thought. She continued the task of going about her coffee, and when she finally had her cup in hand with the fresh brew, she headed back to her room to finish getting dressed and ready. Later, Raimi left her house with a joyous pep in her step. She was really excited to see him, He, being a really interesting and darkly attractive man she had met just a little over a couple of weeks prior. He was new to town and was starting over. She was getting to know him and was very much attracted to him, even as dark and oddly preoccupied as he seemed to be some of the time, always in thought. She was going to meet him at the diner in town. He had texted her late last night to see if she'd be interested in possibly meeting him there in the morning, even just to see each other briefly before going about the busy Saturday that each had to get to, and she had readily responded to him with an enthusiastic yes. She got in the car, and with the start of the ignition along with one of her favorite songs on the stereo, she reversed, shifted into drive, and hummed down the street. It was going to be a fine day as the wind rustled secretly through the trees. As Raimi drove toward the diner, her thoughts were as bright and sunny as the morning itself. She seemed to be swimming in sweet depths of bliss, and things that were normally unnoticed were now amplified to her, such as kids in the park, birds on the wires, and the clouds in the sky. She was truly enjoying the fresh new feelings she was having, and the feelings she had for him. As her drive continued, though, she was completely unaware of the beige Chrysler that she had just passed and that had made a right turn from a side street. It accelerated onto the main road and hung back a few cars behind her. The driver kept her in view and followed her for the duration of the drive to the diner. As Raimi pulled into one of the parking spaces just in front of the store, the Chrysler slowly turned into the driveway of the park that was adjacent to the strip plaza. The driver parked under the shade of an oak tree, turned his engine off, lit a cigarette, and with it pinched between two fingers, hung his arm out of the opened window. His long sleeve was rolled up a few cuffs. He watched her from behind dark sunglasses, and as she swung her purse over her shoulder, she sauntered into the diner. It was the detective who watched her. He sat gazing at her as she entered the place and was still able to see her through the large diner windows. She was looking around momentarily, and then began approaching a man who was already sitting at the counter. The two looked happy to see each other. However, this didn't ease the detective's deep concern. He continued to watch the two, and when he had smoked his cigarette down to the filter, he flicked the butt into the dirt of the parking lot and lit another. He continued to watch the two of them. What was his gut telling him? The diner was its usual hive of activity with the morning breakfast rush. Raimi stealthily stepped inside the entrance of the place and looked around briefly among the heads of the crowd. The clanging of dishes, the counter bell, the barking of breakfast orders, the humming of the crowd's conversations, and the chumming of the cash register filled the place with its concert of commerce. As Raimi surveyed the place, she spotted him. Just seeing him gave her a quick rush of excitement. In the brief time that she'd been talking to him, even the thought of him caused her emotions to erupt into a flaming fury, her heart burning 6 licks to the minute. She thought to herself quite a bit that she'd hoped it would always be like this. A smile formed on her face, and she slouched into her best sneaky posture. She made sure that her presence was inconspicuous so she could strike with a surprise attack on her intended target. Her intended target was totally unaware that she stalked him. She maneuvered quietly through the maze of busy tables to make her way toward the counter where he sat. He was sipping his coffee as he read a newspaper. Once she got close to him, she knelt down even sneakier, and as she approached him, she lightly poked his side. "Boo," she said. He jumped, slightly startled, and an extremely pleased grin adorned his face. He was happy to see her, and was thankful that she agreed to meet him at the diner this morning, even if only for just a few minutes. And he was genuinely apologetic for sending a text so late the night before.
And and your text was the reason I set my alarm to get up early on a Saturday.
And he went on to inquire about what she had going the rest of the day.
Oh, not much, I guess. Got some shopping to do, and I thought about seeing if a certain someone would like to join me this evening for a walk by Fox's Corner.
He enthusiastically agreed to go for a walk with her at Fox's Corner later, and was actually quite surprised that she was interested in spending even more time with him.
I'll shoot you a text as soon as I'm finished with my errands, and I'll give you the address as to where we can meet. Sound good?
He smiled and nodded,
I'm going to go ahead and get going, but I'll see you later.
and with a look of admiration watched her as she made her way toward the exit of the diner. She stepped outside and was met by a pleasant breeze. She shifted her purse to the opposite shoulder and with her fingers cleared hair that had blown in front of her face. She strolled across the busy street toward her car, and before she got in, she looked back inside the diner to take another glance at him. He was slouched at the counter again, looking to be in deep concentration. She paused a little longer and formed a thin smile and got in her car.
Shit, I forgot to listen to Neve's message all the way through.
Hey, Raimi. I know it's a bit early, sweetheart. I just wanted to give you a V-text. I've been thinking about what we were talking about yesterday, and I've got a really bad feeling. I heard my dad talking to some of the other detectives in his unit, and he has a suspicion about your newcomer boyfriend. I know that you and Brock have been talking for a couple of weeks now, and I know that you're really getting comfortable with him, and I'm not trying to say anything against that other than the fact that really bizarre feeling about him. You know what I've always said about my gut, right? I hear my dad is saying that they found another girl's body behind.
The detective, who was still sitting in his car as he had been watching the exchange between the two young people, watched as Raimi drove out of sight. Once she was completely from view, he stepped out of his Chrysler and tossed even another spent cigarette on the ground. He casually walked toward the diner as his look was anchored to the man sitting at the counter. The detective frequently ate at this place and was well known by the staff. As he entered, he was met by Shirley, the head server. She had a grin that was sunny and glad, albeit near toothless. The detective slowly approached the counter and took the seat where Raimi had previously been sitting. And with an air of pleasantness, he began to speak to the man, who looked as though he were trembling slightly.
How you doing, pal?
The man acknowledged the detective's greeting and returned the gesture.
I'm doing okay. Although I must say that I do remember a simpler time when things weren't so, you know.
He was pointing at the headline that the mysterious man was reading.
Things in this small town used to be pretty low-key. That is, up until a couple of weeks ago. You must have heard about all the killings that have been going on around town, right?
The man had visible beads of perspiration forming on his forehead, and he agreed that he had been hearing about the killings recently.
Yeah?
The look on the detective's face had an accusing quality that instantly made the man uncomfortable and defensive. After a moment of uncomfortable silence between the two, the man expressed the fact that he didn't appreciate an insinuation, if that's in fact what the detective was hinting at, that he could be responsible.
Nah, don't take it that way. This is how I normally look.
He was starting to feel the onset of a headache. After a while longer, and after what seemed to the man to be some form of intimidating talk from the detective, the two concluded the conversation. The detective threw a nod and a wink at the head server as he started to make his way out. He learned that the stranger's name was Brock, and he had also let it be known that he knew that he was seeing Raimi, who just happened to be his daughter's best friend, just to let him know. As he turned toward the direction of the exit, a frown formed on his face. The detective now had a feeling of even more unease. Talking to this man hadn't eased his mind in the slightest. In fact, speaking with him had almost sent a chill up his spine, and the way he smiled, the few times that he did, gave the detective even more of a sick feeling in his stomach. That smile. He'd seen it before in New York, on the evil or insane faces of some of the worst people that he'd either arrested or interrogated. That smile. A Nazi foot soldier might have smiled that way just before committing murder, the detective thought. For now, he was going to leave and spend a little bit of time alone to try to work things out in his mind. He'd be meeting with the morgue technician who will be examining the latest victim later that afternoon. Maybe there would be some answers to be had. Maybe the morgue technician would be able to shed some light on something that could lead him in the right direction. Something to help him find the evil that was responsible for these killings. He knew in his mind that he'd be speaking with the man that he met in the diner again, probably sooner than later. He crossed the street and got into his Chrysler. The ground immediately outside of the driver's door was littered with spent butts. The engine roared to life, and he drove away. As the day went on, Raimi went about the things she wanted to get done. She was at the grocery store gathering up her provisions for the week. She was trying to remember the last time she'd felt such a beam of happiness within her in her long life of 22 years. She went about the aisles of the store, barely paying attention to the things she was putting in her shopping cart. She was excited to go on her walk with him. It was going to be such an amazing evening. Her shopping excursion continued a bit more, and after checking out, she was pushing her cart toward her vehicle. Her phone rang, and she saw that it was Neve. She was stuck with a small lancet of irritation as she started to answer. Neve was being so insufferable lately. Talking about gut feelings, talking about bad feelings, and her overall mild contempt for the guy that Raimi had been seeing. Christ, she's really been showing a side of herself lately that's pissing me off, Raimi thought to herself as she answered the phone. As she made her stride toward the car, the conversation briefly churned. Neve's concern and Raimi's defensiveness. Neve wanted Raimi to come to her house as she had something she desperately needed to show her and talk to her about.
Yeah, I'm leaving the store now. I'm going to take my groceries home and then I'll swing by. We can talk then, okay? Yeah, I know how you feel about him and I appreciate your concern. But I've had a couple of weeks to get to know him and he's a really nice guy. I can't imagine why you would think that he's some sort of serial killer. Okay, well, let me go and I'll see you shortly.
Masking her boiling and emerging rage, Raimi fought to keep the tongue civil. She thought to herself that she'd have to put a stop to this, and quickly. She'd go home, put away her groceries, and go to see Neve. But she would also have to put her in her place and get her to knock this shit off. Jealousy and insecurity did not look good on Neve. It was later in the afternoon, and the detective arrived at the town's medical examiner's facility, a sterile and harshly lit place that he had made similar trips to before in recent weeks, and for the same reason. By the time he'd arrived, the morgue technician who was in charge of the autopsy had already completed the grim task of making the examination of the body. This information was according to the phone conversation between the tech and the detective earlier. He'd had a somewhat reasonable, if not disturbing, assessment for the cause of death. As the detective navigated through a maze of hallways with highly polished, sheet vinyl floors, he finally arrived at the elevator which would carry him to the lower level of the facility. There, he would hopefully find something he could use in his case. The stress on his mind was palpable, and it was his hope that the morgue tech would speak words to give him even a little bit more confidence and knowledge. When the elevator reached the morgue level, the detective was met with the uncomfortable chill that pervaded the place. He was instantly overcome with a feeling of dread and wondered how or why anyone would voluntarily work in such a place. This place wasn't as brightly lit as the upper levels of the building. Large, industrial stainless steel sinks sounded with echoing drips as the faucets leaked, and a vast row of gurneys in a line along one of the walls held the bodies of the dead that were covered with sheets. The detective observed the morbid sight of their tagged toes protruding from their coverings. He grimaced slightly as he remembered the crime scene earlier. After a few minutes, a bearded and disheveled-looking man in a stained, unzipped lab coat approached the detective with both a smile and a pleasant greeting. He was clearly having his lunch as he held a sizable cheeseburger in one hand as he shook the detectives with the other. Ketchup and special sauce dripped down his beard just under his mouth, and he lazily wiped at it with the heel of his hand. After the salutations between himself and the detective, he ushered the detective into a small examination room where the latest victim was laying on a gurney and still covered with a blood-stained sheet. His explanation and hypothesis was brief yet thorough. He continued to nibble away at his cheeseburger indifferently as he spoke.
Definitely an animal attack of some sort. Wouldn't rule out a bear, although I'm not really familiar with there ever having been aggressive bear attacks in this area before. But stranger things have happened, I guess. As you can see, these lacerations at the throat through the upper thorax indicate that this was clearly not done with a weapon. These were done with claws.
Bears? I don't think I recall a time that bears ever acted out like this, with this kind of brutality, or anything like this in this area before.
It's not unheard of for a bear to act with this kind of aggression towards someone if they're protecting their young or if they're extremely hungry. It's a rare occasion, but it does happen. I will say, however, the abnormal amount of additional predation beyond the trauma is strange. And of course, making the positive ID of the victim is going to be hard to do as, well...
Yes. The violence seems to be escalating. Of all the previous victims, this seems to be the one that's had the most brutality inflicted on it. This is a cop's worst nightmare. There's nothing worse than trying to figure out why people are getting killed over fucked up reasons.
The chill in this place was persistent and unchanged. After the visit to the morgue, the detective was arriving home where his daughter, Neve, had been doing some cleanup in the kitchen. He came in and took his coat off and draped it on the back of one of the bar chairs. He placed his keys on the breakfast bar, and Neve noticed a disturbed and darkly fitting look on his face. She was hoping that his day was over and that he could relax. His plan was indeed to relax, but he wasn't going to be able to sit for long. His plan was to pour a nice, stiff knock of bourbon, sit in his study, and think for a little while before resuming his continued investigation. There's no way that he was going to be able to fully relax knowing that there was a complete psycho roaming free in town and creating a growing collection of mangled victims. It just wasn't going to be able to happen. But he needed something to deal with the trouble at hand.
Hi, Dad. Are you in for the night?
No, babe. I just wanted to stop by for a few minutes before I head out again.
Daddy, please be careful.
I will. Say, I've got something I've been meaning to ask you about. Raimi, is she still seeing that new guy still?
She's still seeing him, against my objection. They're going walking this evening, she said.
Brock is his name? How well do you know him? What kind of guy would you say he is?
I don't know him well at all, and really don't care to. He gives me the creeps. I mean, there's just something wrong about him.
Having tended to what she needed to, Raimi eventually arrived at Neve's house. As she pulled into her driveway, she saw that Neve was standing in the opened front doorway, as if she knew when Raimi was going to arrive and anticipated it. She noticed that Neve had an expectant smile on her face, but also noticed that it looked like something was going on behind her eyes. Something dark and worrisome. This seemed to add to Raimi's irritation. She wondered if there had been something that had happened when she wasn't looking in the brief time that Brock had been introduced to Neve. Otherwise, why would she be acting so nervously and overly protective? It was going to end today, she'd be bound. But at the same time, she wanted to be an adult about it. Therefore, she'd try to soft-handle the situation as much as possible. No sense in getting Neve even more unreasonably upset than she already seemed to be. Raimi walked up to the door where Neve stood, still smiling, and the two embraced. They both went inside, and Neve made drinks for the both of them. A short while went on, and the two discussed Neve's heavy-hearted concern. She handed Raimi a newspaper with the headline folded to be all that was visible. Raimi grabbed the folded newspaper with an agitated jerk and read it. Neve reinforced her concerns with the headline being the affirmation of her case.
Do you ever remember anything like this happening around here before he got here?
Okay, Neve, I get it. You don't like him. But I'm not going to sit here and accuse him of being the son of Sam. He doesn't give me that impression at all. Where are these bad vibes coming from with you?
Look, sweetie, I'm not trying to piss you off. I'm just saying be careful. Please, some people might not be what they seem.
It'll be okay, chick. Stop worrying, okay?
The discussion was over, or at least it seemed to be, and the two of them held their hands in one another's and gave each other assured and friendly smiles. It should be cleared up and okay now. At about the time things were cooling off between the two of them, Neve's dad, the detective, had walked out of the study where he'd been drinking his bourbon previously. He continued to look at the two of them as they watched him silently. Something had clearly been going on, he thought. Neve got up from the couch and started to make more drinks. Little did Raimi know that the feelings of concern weren't just confined to Neve, but that the detective had them as well. Brock and Raimi met at Fox's Corner that evening as they had planned to do previously. As the two walked further down the gravel path, it seemed that after talking quite a bit, there was not much else to say. They seemed to enjoy the peaceful silence of the surrounding woods, the swaying of the trees, and the songs of the birds. Brock was slowing his pace and was intermittently shooting glances back and forth between Raimi and the gravel path. His head, which had quelled itself out of the grip of a headache earlier, was now starting to throb again. His eyes locked with Raimi's coincidentally, and his look caused her eyebrows to furrow. It startled her slightly, and seeing her look of bewilderment, Brock stopped walking. She stopped just a few steps ahead of him, and walked back to stand right in front of him. He was beginning to talk to her from the momentary silence from before. His tone was slow and quiet. He was explaining to her that as much as he liked her, and as much time as they've spent together, he felt as though he wanted to be completely honest with her about a few things regarding himself.
Really? Is it bad? I haven't done something wrong, have I?
He explained to her that there was a lot to him that she didn't see on the surface, but that aside from a few personal physical issues that he struggled with, there were things she needed to know. One physical issue was just a slight case of hypoglycemia, which caused occasional seizures. There was indeed a darker corner that he needed to tell her about, though. She assured that she could help.
Well, that's okay. I mean, it's not okay that you suffer from seizures, and I can only imagine how painful that has to be. But I can help you manage it.
With a growing, taunting tone in his voice, he began to walk toward her slowly, causing her to instinctively walk backwards and off of the gravel path. As he walked toward her slower still, a grin slowly formed on his face, and he gazed at her crazily. This sent a chill down her spine, and suddenly, for some weird reason, she could hear Neve's warning voice in her head.
Some people might not be what they seem.
Now she was thinking that this is what you call a fucking O. Henry ending, you stupid girl.
Brock, you're kind of scaring me right now.
Through the now toothy grin, he said, I don't know why you're starting to run away, little lady. Ain't gonna do you no good. She was thunderstruck, and at the same time was wondering why he was talking like that, like some backwoods redneck thug. Come on now, get on back here and let me give you the rest of the scoop. I ain't through showing you what I gots to show you. After several minutes of this hide-and-seek routine in these woods, he was getting even more impatient, and his dialogue was growing even more insane. Come on, Little Red Riding Hood, let's quit this.
Oh my god, Brock, you're not making sense. Are you joking? It's not funny.
Finally, his patience reached the end of the proverbial rope. Oh, hell with it. I'm through playing with you. Now it's time to feed, so now it's gonna fucking feed.
Leave me alone, Brock. This is a sick joke.
Raimi found herself to be in the grip of the worst panic attack she'd ever had, and rightly so. Brock had transformed from someone she had strong interests and aspirations of having something with romantically to a raving psychotic who she was frantically and desperately stomping through twigs and mud to get away from. He was making absolutely no sense at all with his taunts and was terrifying her to her core. Every second that passed, his rationale faltered. Completely winded, she squatted at the base of a cypress tree, feet and calves muddy and with scrapes scattered on various parts of her body from multiple falls. She was trying to keep as still and as quiet as she could, although her breath was coming and going in violent hitches and heaves. From somewhere behind her, she heard the loud snap of a fallen limb. She sneakily peeked around the trunk of the tree to get a glimpse. Nothing was there. She then heard Brock's voice getting closer with ever-growing rage in it, and she darted away from the cypress tree. Brock saw her and continued his vile verbal barrage. Go ahead on, boy. Gravy train's waiting. Get her. Chaotic confusion erupted. Raimi felt her grip on reality slipping as she was met with what she saw. A gigantic, aberrant creature, tall, slumped, and mockingly doggish. Like something out of a Mike Ploog painting, it stood with long, gaunt arms and spindly fingers tipped with glossy black claws. It stared at Raimi with intensely yellow and evil eyes. Its jaws snapped open and shut. Gator-like teeth that were razor-sharp were dripping with foamy streams of saliva. It descended upon Raimi, and with a swift swing, swatted her face, causing her to soar several feet from where she was standing. She whimpered as she crawled away, dazed from the blow. She felt warm blood flowing in freshets from gashes on her face. Brock approached the two of them, and the beast slowed its advance. The monster seemed to take its commands from Brock. Was that possible? Was it his pet? It looked back and forth from Raimi to Brock. Ardent determination seemed to overcome the thing as it seemed barely able to control its animalistic attack. With a few more taunts hurled at her from Brock, the creature resumed its advance toward Raimi. Now she tried to scurry away backwards on her hands and feet, looking in horror at the beast. It grew closer, and its snout was only inches away from her face. Suddenly, upsetting the entire attack, a voice yelled from the entrance of the woods.
Raimi! Stay down!
It was the detective, and he had a shotgun leveled off and pointed at the beast. With lightning-fast, unnatural speed and agility, the demonic creature charged at the detective, who was only milliseconds away from squeezing off a blast from the shotgun. It swatted the weapon from the detective's grip, and before he had a chance to flee, the monster began a ravenous assault.
Oh, you son of a bitch, you got me.
This continued a bit longer, and it was apparent that the creature was only having some form of twisted pleasure from only brutalizing the detective. If he wanted to kill him, he would have already done it. To make things worse, even Brock had gotten in on the action of the brutality and terror by having shot the detective once in the side with a pistol that he had been carrying. The detective lay helpless on the ground after the assault. Raimi was gathering her senses once again amidst the horror. Brock was approaching the detective, who was laying on his back. The the creature standing hunched over him like someone over a vanquished enemy. With his pistol brandished and pointed at the fallen and injured detective, he continued his taunts as the creature stood slumped next to him, frantically swinging its glances back and forth between the detective and Brock. With a devastating and thundering report that rolled away with an echo into the woods, the shotgun had been retrieved by a now recomposed Raimi. She had blown a shot into Brock's back, killing him instantly. He fell forward onto his front side just a foot in front of the detective. A look of shock and disbelief was frozen on his face. The creature was even more enraged. It shot a glance skyward and emitted an ear-shattering gargled shriek. The detective tried desperately to move to grab the pistol that had still been in Brock's grip, but it was futile. His gunshot wound made it impossible for him to move with any agility at all. The creature advanced toward Raimi with a slobbery smirk on its snout. It had the look of terrible concentration. It was going to enjoy making her pay for what she had just done. Its stride was slow and certain, and its spindly fingers made clicking sounds as they writhed, making the claws tap together. Raimi had one chance to end this. With a body that trembled uncontrollably, she mustered everything within her and raised the calamitous barrel of the weapon to aim it at the creature's face. She struggled to keep her aim as steady as the horrible monster approached. Her finger rested upon the trigger, and as the creature raised both of its gangly arms to bring down in its ruinous and final attack, the shot rang out.
Open wide, Spot!
It sent both parties back in opposite directions. Raimi flailed back a few feet for rifle's recoil, but the creature was sent back several feet, roughly half its head now gone from the blast. Blood flowed in steady streams over and through its fingers that cradled its head. Stringy sinew, brain matter, and gruesome torn flesh was visible as it convulsed on its feet. Its screams were gargled as its blood saturated its airways. It fell to its knees and proceeded to whimper like a wounded puppy, momentarily jerking a feeling of sympathy from Raimi, who already had tears streaming down her face. The feeling of sympathy was short-lived, however. The beast fell forward like a defeated tree, landing on its front side the same as Brock, with a heavy thud that was almost sickening in its sound. Its death twitches went on for a few minutes. The detective struggled to crawl toward a tree to sit up against its trunk, as Raimi quickly came to his aid. She could see that his gunshot wound wasn't going to be life-threatening, or at least it didn't look to be so. She would need to get him to a hospital immediately, though. So she began the task of standing him to his feet so that they could get to the car. It would probably be quicker for her to do it this way rather than wait for an ambulance to get there. There would be a whole lot of explaining to do, and that needed to be reserved for another time. Right now, she needed to get the detective help. The two were on their feet, and slowly but surely made their way toward the mouth of the woods. Having finally made it to her car, she secured the detective in the passenger side and quickly rounded it to get in herself. She flared the car into life, and with a quick look at the detective, sped off down the road. Epilogue. The trees rustled through the evening's final breeze. The two villains lay fallen in the bowels of the forest, as occasionally a woodland creature would approach the bodies inquisitively, and then turn to prod about their business elsewhere. In the weeks that followed, the detective, who was recovering from his wounds, was prodded by reporters who were desperate for answers to the questions they had. Who? What? How? Why? None of which the detective had definitive explanations for. Whenever his phone rang now, he let it go to voicemail. He would continue to convalesce until he was ready to return to work. And hopefully, things in this small town would resume the way they had been for the past 15 years of his residency here. Raimi's heart was broken, but at the same time, she was very thankful to be alive. She was the intended next victim in this spree of savage killings. And what in the hell was that thing? And, well, she just had so many questions that she knew would never be answered, so she just left it alone. Her apologies to Neve continued on and on, in spite of Neve's assurance that she had no need to apologize. Neve was reassuring Raimi that she loved her and was only looking out for her consistently. The two resumed their deep friendship and had a mutual, protective attitude toward one another, especially in the times when either one of them expressed interest in someone romantically. It seemed like everything was going to be okay again. This was just a bad patch, Raimi would think to herself. But it was over now. She would think this to herself, especially on the nights when she struggled to find sleep, laying alone in the dark, with the vision of those yellow, evil eyes staring at her.
Demon dogs and hounds of hell, treat them right, will do you well. Succumb to fear and live in pride. Feed the beast and live at night. Underworld creatures come out for the kill, dragging you in, sticking down on the spill. The various creatures with perilous plans laugh in your face and then shake in your hands. Hellhounds all around, laugh in your face. Hellhounds all around, destroy your brain. A band of villains who are all women, summon a creature to rise. Crucified women in need of revenge, plotting their victim's demise. Soon after chanting and turned into ranting, a hideous creature arrives.
Whoa. Hello. See how we get this going. Hey. How's it going? Wow, that was
You didn't check your messages, young man.
What do you mean? Oh, okay. Yeah, you did say that, didn't you?
I did. So, anywho, hold on a second. There's a method to my madness. And that's my method. And that's my madness. And I just want to say, Steve, and you guys, that was absolutely phenomenal. Let me tell you, I was watching it on my 65-inch screen TV with the surround sound on. And my surround sound simulates 5.1 regardless. And it sounded freaking amazing.
Nice.
All right. I'll let you guys do your thing.
Awesome. Thank you, man.
All right. So
awesome,
how long
Sean. Thank you.
how did something like that? I got some comments here. Sean Smithin's very cool. And we got Brandon E. Brooks. Killer work, Steve.
Right.
Brandon
Thanks,
E. Brooks
Brandon.
again. Congrats to all involved. And then Sean Smithin again says that was badass, extremely well done. And for
Appreciate
some
that.
reason, my brother Ray Shepard wanted to say, "Is that CJ voicing the female character?" This is my voice. What are you talking about?
And I'm curious what kind of special effects Johnny's using right now.
He's in the Millennium Falcon. That's what he's doing. All right, he's
There
back.
you
There you go.
So, Steve, tell me about this. How long did it take to create something like this? That was very well made, like the viewers are saying.
I appreciate that. Yeah, it's actually months in the making. You know, it started off, it was going to be a short film project, resources, how it works, dictated that it could be a audio project, but and since it was going to be an audio project, I had to kind of go in and write extra stuff. So that's what happened.
All right, and then Johnny and Brian got involved because they're your actors.
Yeah, they were actually they were actually on the casting couch.
And they got casted. That's awesome.
Yeah, we did a bunch of auditions, Zoom auditions and whatnot, to try to bring people on board and stuff like that. And like I said, it was going to be a short film. It just didn't work out that way. But like I said before, these two guys right here are who I had in mind for the characters that, morgue technician and the detective. So they were going to be there.
I actually like the, even the Remy character, the female lead, like following through the story. And then when you get, Johnny, like your voice breaks through for Mirizi as a detective. I was kind of visualizing you right there, just in my head as a detective. But Brian, I was having a hard time seeing you as a was a mortician or what is that?
Yeah, morgue tech, yeah.
Yeah, you still too friendly face. Is it when you guys are doing the roles? Do you portray those character traits? Like, do you try to be like a detective, or is it just something in your head and you just figure out? Either way.
Yeah, I'd just go ahead and just kind of just put myself in the situation in my head, I guess, and just try to just play it out, because it is just kind of audio at the moment, so it's kind of hard. You're by yourself recording audio, so it's a little different than having someone to play off of,
Because this is all done remotely, right?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. So how'd you find that, Johnny, working remote? Was that difficult for you, or how was that for you? I think you're muted. You're not coming in. Johnny, I can't hear you. You're not coming in. Hello, you're not coming in. No audio. He's frozen now.
Ruh-roh.
Yoinks! All right, let's see. Unmute. There he goes. Are you there? Hello? Let's see. I think it's a little delayed. All right, we'll come back to that, Johnny. Can you hear? Can you talk? You there? Oh, he can hear. He can't. Is your audio? He can hear, but his audio's not coming. All right. Well, we'll keep going. We'll keep going. I did have a few things I was coming up when I saw you did the promotions for Beast Comes at Midnight. How was that?
Yeah, and truthfully, I need to go ahead and throw a shout out to the guys over at Beast, over at Showtown American Pictures, Big Ed, Todd Hoifer, Mike McKeever, and they're the ones who actually got me inspired to pick the pen back up. I worked on that film Beast Comes at Midnight, and that's what inspired me. Pick the pen back up, and so yeah, shout out to those guys.
And this obsession for werewolves is just something that you always had and just kind of focused on it, or it's just you just decided I'm going to pick a mythological creature and it's going to be a werewolf?
Well, actually, I was going to include the author's note that I recorded, but I decided not to because I figured it'd be too boring. But yeah, I started a werewolf story back in 1997, and due to unfortunate circumstances, I wasn't able to finish it. And just kind of put it on the back burners for a while. And like I said, working with Todd and Ed and those guys reignited that passion to pick it up and start all over again. And that's where this came from.
Yeah, man. Your videos are not only are they they're very inspiring. I like a lot of things you say. One of the things I got was you said about one hand watch when you're talking about the India Escape. You were talking about how everybody kind of supports everybody. You said one hand watches the other, and both hands watch the face. And I was like, man, where'd you get that from? That was such a great saying. I don't even know where you got that from.
I got that from the Honeymooners.
Okay,
Jackie Gleason. Yeah, where he says, "Hey, one hand washes the other hand, both hands wash the face." And Norton says, "Hey, don't tell me which way. I work in the sewer. I know. Just give me the water. I know which way."
It's a great impression. Hey,
but yeah.
It's awesome. And Brian, is this your first voiceover work you've done, or have you done anything else?
Absolutely, yeah. First time doing anything.
Oh, did you do acting at all?
Yeah, completely.
Wow. I could wow, that's good. That's really, you came out really authentic in there. Like
Well,
that's
thank you.
awesome. It's cool.
If you don't mind me saying something though, we work together. You know, we work together at West Coast Nuclear Pharmacy. Got to throw a shout out to those guys too as well.
Okay.
But
What?
yeah, but yeah, you don't see him in the break room. You know, like
Yeah.
his wit is like off the charts. I mean, he's like, you can say something to him, and he's like, he comes back like that. I'm like, oh yeah, I
Like the
gotta
quick in the
cast
day,
this
just boom, right back
gotta
at you.
cast this guy.
Boom.
I have my moments.
There you go.
Yeah, just like no thoughts at all. Like millisecond, he's like right there.
Hey man, he sounds like already great material. You could write, just write about. Just hang out with him for 30 minutes in the lunchroom, and you got a short there.
Yeah, brainstorming's fun. Yeah.
Yeah. See, Johnny, can you come in? Ranger, you coming through?
Uh-oh.
I see he's having an issue. He can't hear.
Yeah, we've been having trouble with like stuff like that.
Mm.
Starting
All right,
with
let's
me.
see. Ray's got something here. When recording voice only, one tends to be over picky on what you keep. On average, how many takes did you guys do until you were happy?
2 more. Yeah, I don't know. I think I sent Steve maybe 8 takes, but I took for I don't know how many more than that. But yeah, definitely being over picky with your own stuff for sure.
Let's see if he comes through. Unmute. How about you, Steve? How long does it take you to get through a part, like a verse? Like
Quite a bit.
Yeah.
In fact, I've got a whole folder on my computer with like tons of like outtakes that I think I might throw out there one day and say, hey, listen to this crap,
Yeah.
When the plane's flying over and like, hold on, God
Yeah.
damn it, wait for the fucking plane. All you hear is, so Raimi said that she was gonna Jesus, Mary and Joseph, here we go. And there's a lot of times that I don't click the the pause button. I'm just letting it go. So yeah, I got like a lot of stuff.
Man, there are times where
Tons of
I have
takes.
to like actually go back and I'm like, it's the part that I said, oh shit. It's because it's got to be, and it's like, because then after that I say this right after, and I like that line, and I have to. It's like, oh, here's that part. I say that, just kind of figuring it out. Yeah, it does. It's kind of now since 2020, we all have our own like studio, in-home studio work. Like are you in the closet? Do you have soundproof? It's like I don't know. Some of this quality is pretty well, but still at the end of the day, you want to have like the clean and the crisp. And then just these little things like the AC turning on like right when I need my audio not to be on. That's like it's always the best, man. It's always the best.
Condensing unit just fires up out of nowhere. So now all of a sudden the next take is you got that hum in the background. It's like, oh god.
Yeah, I'm constantly like checking my audio nowadays because I just have like that feeling like did I have, is it picking up the mic? Is it did I plug it in? Did I do this? It's just the audio to me. I think audio, when I was going to film school, they called audio the redheaded stepchild in the room. But the more and more the more because nobody wanted to pay attention to it, I guess nobody really cared about it. But I was like, no, the more audio brings you in, the darker the room, the darker the ambiance, the audio brings you in. The audio really like sells things for you. And just the fact that you're doing like small little sound effects in there, to me that's amazing. Like you're just picking up on things, or hey, this is what's going on. It's building the atmosphere. There's really no like wasted space. I've watched so many movies that like my top 5 movies, I could just put them in the earbuds and just walk around and listen to them. And that's kind of what I kind of like your approach to this. I like listening to your voice all day. I have a question about that. Is that something you practice, or is that like just your voice that you just like my stepdad always makes fun of me when I answer the phone, like, oh, hello. I'm like, no, I don't do that. Like when he says I do that, but I'm like, okay, I have that voice. But is your voice you build it for like character, or is that really just you kind of just getting in there?
Yeah, that's not really my voice, man. I mean, it is my voice, but when you get in front of the microphone, you kind of you go into character yourself, but like I pull a lot of influence from like guys like Frank Muller, William Peter Blatty, Steven Weber. These guys, you're not going to talk like I'm not going to walk into like Starbucks or whatever and go, let me get a double. You know what I mean? But yeah,
Yeah.
you have to you have to work at it. You know.
Yeah, it feels like with just like being able to kind of draw and do storyboards and write a story, like just being able just to I think get this far in because even with your audio tracks, I feel like I can get the video for that and just go out and just add it. Like it's already done the hardest part of the story, and I think that's what really helps out with that. But
Well, see, that was kind of the whole idea behind the Bestial thing. You know, is thinking about the decision to take it into audio is because it's a story. It's a story, and truthfully, that's where film starts. From a story, and I figured, okay, well, if I can't make this thing a film right now, there is a way that I can convey this message, in audio form, and still get people to feel what they might feel if they watched it as a film. Does that make sense?
No, you're absolutely right. Yeah.
So I mean, and what you were saying earlier about the audio aspect, it's funny, because I have heard that before about the audio being a redheaded stepchild, but audio is a very important element. I mean, without the audio, think about it. Remember what John Carpenter said about Halloween when he showed it to that editor, and they were like, "Yeah, this really isn't that scary," but then he went back and added the score and made it like 10 times more scarier. So like audio really does add a whole lot to something.
Yeah, especially like John Carpenter, someone who sees they have to have control on their whole like aspect from beginning to end, and it's very inspiring, very like, yeah, I understand why he's the way he is, and he'll definitely take his time, and it's a craftsman. Outside of the like for everyone, I guess just anybody has like I have a question here as the influences outside of Jason or all the like the nightmare movies, are there any other influences that you that kind of like inspire you to do more of like a horror genre, or like or is it just story you like, or is it just werewolves? Or
well, honestly, the genesis of the Bestial idea came from it, and I'm going to dig back into like obscure TV history here. There was a show that was like on ABC back in '82, and I'm dating myself too, I know that. But you remember The Dark Room? You're probably too young for it, but there was a show called The Dark Room, and it was hosted by James Coburn, and it was kind of like a Twilight Zone creep show kind of thing, anthology series. Yeah. Well, anyway, there was if you think about like the Twilight Zone and creep show and Dark Room, yeah, I'm influenced by like all kinds of different methods of storytelling. Like my major influences are like Richard Matheson, well, of course, Edgar Allan Poe, Robert Bloch, and Stephen King. Got to throw him in there too,
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's not just Jason. It's not just werewolves. I've got a whole bunch of stuff. I'm even thinking about writing romance.
Wow, that'd be like get into that vampire romance. See if you could change it up a bit. Like,
step outside the box a little bit, just to see if just to see if I can do it.
Yeah, it's always like that. Brian, is this as acting seem like something you're gonna keep pursuing, or something you're looking forward to doing more often, or?
I'm definitely would look forward to doing any opportunities I get, but I have no idea if I have the time to pursue it necessarily.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't. It's definitely been a fun project to try out for sure.
Yeah, I think with myself, I had the 3 like self-tape auditions I did last year, and I didn't land any of the gigs, but I got back a lot of my like constructive criticism was like, oh, you have a nice voice, you should follow voice acting, and I was like, the face is messing it up for me. I get it. So, I got the problem here. We got a comment here from Brandon E. Brooks. He says, props to you, Steve, because more of this type work is needed. I still love listening to the old War of the Worlds audio that shocked and scared the world. Oh,
yes,
that's
Orson
Welles, right? Yeah,
absolutely, man.
Oh man, what was I? I think I was like in
awesome, Brandon.
Like in sophomore in high school when I heard that. So I had already gone through a lot, but I was like, wait a minute, people actually believe this? But if you don't really not aware of like the media at the time, like that'd be some scary stuff, like it's like, holy crap, they're coming up, and then Orson Welles is being, there they are, all over the bridge, they're coming. It's just like, oh, that guy's voice.
It's like Blair Witch Project before the Blair Witch Project, right?
Yeah. Oh man, I've seen behind the looks of all that, behind the scenes and all that, and they played the role for like a whole year that it was real, and people just bought into it. And I mean, I was in high school, so we went to go watch it, and I was kind of like, what the hell did I just watch? But it's like, as a filmmaker now, I'm like, oh, this is so awesome. I understand, I get it. So let's see. Ray said something here. Ray Shepard said, "Books on tape suck. You've added enough sound ambiance that you do create a world in the listener's mind. If you can pull this off without film, the product is good enough for a film." Yeah.
Right on. Thanks,
He's right.
Ray. Appreciate
He's
that,
right.
man.
Yeah. So I don't know. We lost Johnny Mac. He's having
Means a
audio
lot.
issues. And I think, I mean, if y'all, I think we got a little bit of time in. I don't know if y'all want to share any plugs or anything, or you want to do any shout outs. I can give you some.
Wait a second. Wait
Oh,
a second.
did I mess
Somebody missed my question. Either that or I froze up and I didn't hear it. So
What? Who was? Okay, sorry.
Steve, can you get this one, brother?
Yes, thank you for that's that Planet Graveyard is the one who did the song Hounds of Hell or Hellhounds. And Gary Adams also did Trail of No Return. Yeah, I wanted to throw a shout out to those guys for agreeing to let me use their music on the project.
Yeah, that was some pretty kick-ass music at the end. We got Brandon E. Brooks.
Yeah, they were good.
The Ghost of John Dugan computer service has a hold of Johnny Mac system. Oh man, we've been having issues with Mr. Dugan. Oh man, yeah.
And I was hanging out with him this weekend. So
did you at least give him an iPhone 6 or 7? Did you hand him over something?
Oh no, I gave him the 3. It still will be
It's still better. That's even better than what he has.
All right, didn't mean to interrupt.
No, there, the Ghost of Joe. There he is. But yeah, man, I mean, it was great hanging out. I don't know. I mean, I see I don't know. We're kind of winding out. I don't know how much time we have. We still got viewers here. I guess I could keep talking, man, because this is right up my alley. I did really get along a lot of these messages in, because I did do some things like I was cleaning the kitchen, doing laundry, and just kind of like getting in my world today. And just listening to your stuff, I was just like, man, this is inspiring. But it's also like, I guess just for me, like, how long did it take you to switch over to digital, to actually start learning how to use the iPad?
The iPad?
Procreate, or what we're using to do the illustrations?
Oh yeah, iPad. You mean for digital artwork?
Yeah, digital art.
I've been doing it for years. I started off on the iPad too. Just experimentation. Once I started, kind of experiment, watching YouTube. You can learn anything. Watching YouTube videos and that kind of stuff. I don't know. That's hard to say. I mean,
Yeah, it's just kind of started to get into it, and you're like, I gotta switch over, because I think one of your videos you're talking about, I think the Jason one, you're saying like, I just switched over to digital, so here's my first work, and I was like, man, this thing looks amazing. You just picked it up. I've never done this before. Let me see how this works.
You got to consider, I've been drawing since the 70s, so like, I just try to, okay, well, I think the same applications apply. I think the same premise applies to this. Let me just give it a shot. And then when you lay that first line down, it's like, okay, yeah, that's working,
Yeah,
and
I did.
Flow with it,
Yeah, just get in there, and I think, because like, even like now, the way I think about acting is different. The way I think about just painting is different, because it's just now I'm like, there's, before I used to just think it was like a base level where there is, but you just do a little bit more research, a little bit more, and now I find more like more information out of people just talking to a camera. I don't need a demonstration as much anymore, because I'm realizing I'm like, it's kind of like having a conversation. So so by you doing these videos, it's kind of like you're kind of in the room with us, kind of just talking and kind of explaining things to us, and it's pretty cool. So I dig that you got that going, man. But
right on, man.
Yeah, dude. So I guess let's wrap it up. I guess Joe, you have anything else to say? You want to pop in? Got anything you want to get shout outs here?
Absolutely. Everybody who's tuning in, please do not forget to go to the Indie Escape Facebook page and YouTube channel. Like, subscribe. Also, the Candlelit Room. Go there right now. Like, subscribe.
All right. Well,
thank you, brother.
Thank you guys for showing up. And appreciate
I'm sorry, I forgot one thing. Steve, thank you for the shout outs at the end of it. That was awesome of you.
Thank
Right
you.
on,
Yeah,
Neve.
yeah. Thank you. You did put my name in there. Thanks.
And let me make sure I'm going to pronounce your last name the right way. Robles.
So Joe puts too much emphasis on the R's, Robles, but it's just Robles.
I can't.
Yeah, it's just Robles. It's like CJ Robles or CJ Robles. Not supposed to put it. I just do it, but it's Robles.
CJ Rolades.
Robles. There you go. Oh god, that's
damn.
a dang. Or Rob less. I'll rob for less. I guess I don't know. So
You're a small guy. You should rob for less.
I should, right? But I mean, yeah. you can't. I also have the power to do this. Adios, Joe.
And I have the power to do this. Brian, I have to say, brother, I have beard envy, just so you know.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, me too.
Yes, sir.
I grew it myself.
Oh, that's good, man. You put a lot of time into it. Let's see, we got Brandon E. Brooks in here. Congrats again, Steve, and thank you, Steve, for the amazing graphics. Couldn't do solid promotion for my show without you. Much appreciated. Thank you, Brandon.
Absolutely. And the
Very
rest
welcome,
of the
Brandon.
Indie
Thank
Brigade. Indie Escape. Shit, don't let me do that.
I've been
Damn
trying. I've been trying.
Oh, yeah, I
snap.
did it. Yeah. Hey, 2 years of doing one thing, 6 months of doing the other thing, it escapes you sometimes.
I forgive you. We're working on it. But
Oh man.
Yeah, that's time for me to go.
that is, he got himself out. Well, thank you, gentlemen, for coming by. I'm gonna get you out of here. But if you got anything else to say, Brian, you wanna say anything about what you're up to or anything, or?
I'm not up to much of anything. But I do want to thank Steve for involving me in all this. This has been great for sure.
You're welcome, man.
Thank you for having
Thank you.
Yeah, it sounds like you have Tim Burton to Johnny Depp there. Kind of, see how that works out.
me. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see how everything works out. You know what I'm saying?
Right on, man.
Thanks, Brian. Dude, well, Steve, man, it was amazing, dude. That was great, and like I said, I appreciate a lot of your work, and I like the you can tell the craftsmanship and the lot of time you put into this, and it shows. It really shows, man. And thank you for being part of the network too. Like it picks us up value a lot. Great job, Brian. That was Brandon. Yeah, thank you, Brandon. But if you want to say anything, do you want to promote yourself? You got anything coming up? Let me you.
Yeah, just go to the Candlelit Room. Actually, this Saturday, I was wanting to mention Saturday the 29th, Bestial will be on the Chilling Tales for Dark Nights YouTube channel at 6 p.m. if people want to tune in, just for fun. Watch some of the comments. Some of the comments are kind of funny to watch. There's a lot that people love this stuff. I mean, it's amazing how many people actually dig, the audio story stuff. And check that out.
Reminds me of the like when I remember they just cranked the radio and the family would sit down and listen to like the old westerns. I mean, like listen to westerns, like or crime or thrillers. Like you would sit there and then I couldn't imagine my son just coming up to me and be like, "Whoa, why would Penelope go with the bad guy?" And I was like, "I don't know, but let's tune in to next week, because."
They were chapter plays. Yeah,
chapter was like different, and so that's kind of like what I get a lot of out of this, and it helps me to kind of create what's in my head. Because when you read a book, and that's what they always say, books are always better than the movie, of course. Because when you read the book, you create your own character in your head, and then when you hear this, it's your own thing, right? It's just like you're just making it up.
Exactly. See, that's one of the things that I find intriguing about the whole audio thing is because. For however many people listen to this thing, there's going to be so many different interpretations. Like, what does Raimi look like? What does Neve look like? We already know what Brian and, the detective look like. But like, what's the creature look like? I would love to hold like an art contest and see, what does the creature look like? What do you see the creature appearing as in your mind? And another thing I wanted to mention is if you go to archive.org, you probably know this already, but you can download all those old radio shows for free. Like,
I did not know that.
CBS Radio Mystery Theater, Lights Out, Inner Sanctum Mysteries, The Shadow, all that stuff is there and it's for free if you wanted to go check it out.
And then I like it where it help, like, not only does it help me for like any kind of writer's block or anything creating, but it also like it's already out there. It's already kind of like a blueprint. So it helps me if you just can't get started, just kind of visualize what you're hearing. How would you make it, or just do storyboards? Or I like storyboards. But that's
Yeah.
just my whole thing for like illustrating. But like Jason Buterin, I had him on last night, and he does very detailed shot lists. So I would really like to see his like shot list. It probably like navigates you and directs you exactly where the gold's at, where the good stuff's at. Where you and I are probably gonna be like, we'll illustrate it. We'll show you exactly what we're talking about, just to understand. I think communicating is like the number one thing we can do. It's like not just like speaking. I feel it's like the easiest form of communication, so it can kind of gets cluttered a lot. But like drawing and sculpting or anything to do with some kind of arts is like showing, expressing. Someone else can pick that up without even just like having a knowing of where you're from. They could just look at it. So a lot of this stuff I see is kind of like hieroglyphs. So these are pretty cool things you're leaving behind.
Sure,
And,
absolutely.
yeah. And we'll end on this note with Brandon E. Brooks. He's got to go because it's getting kind of late. Yeah, awesome job tonight,
Yeah,
CJ. Thank you. And keep it up. Great work, Steve. Proud to be in the Indian Escape, brother, of you two talented gents, as well as the rest of the crew. Good night. Thank you, Brandon.
Thank you, Brandon.
Yeah, Steve. Well, I'm going to let you go, brother. It was great talking to you. I'm going to drop you down in the green room, and I'm going to shut us out.
Okay, brother. Thank you.
All right. Peace. Well, thank you, everybody, for hanging out with us tonight at the Indie Escape. Remember, that is there at the bottom if you want to get a hold of... Oh, what's up, Joe? Oh, about to see back in.
Steve, tell us where we can find you on the socials, brother.
Well, if you want to look up the Bestial Facebook page, if you want to just look me up, Steve Gray on Facebook. Instagram, Dark Chapel, dark_chapel, and dark is DAARK_chapel. If you want to follow me on Instagram, I usually post some cool stuff up there. But Candlelit Room. Oh, and also the Bloodstained Floor YouTube channel if you want to check out some of my like speed drawings or whatever.
Awesome. Now we're going to put you down in the green room.
Thanks, Joe. Thanks, CJ.
Hey.
Appreciate it, man.
Damn kids still.
And that's how we do it here. Batman to the Robin. Well, we got everything, got all the bases covered now, and I'm gonna let everyone go. Thank you for hanging out with us. Thank you for Steve Gray. Thank you for Brian. Thank you for Johnny Mac. Unfortunately, the ghost of John Dugan system got him, so maybe we'll get Johnny Mac back on, and we'll give him some Q&A. But thank you, everybody, and y'all have a good night. In the Escape out.